We're going to go ahead and dive in just a second. I saw Norman just hop on. Let's see, Norman, are you there? Can you hear me? JS, those email follow-ups are I give those to my Academy members. So let's go ahead and dive in. Today's going to be a little bit of fun. I'm going to take you behind the scenes of some stuff. So with that, welcome to the Ecom Insiders Jam session for March. We're going to be kicking things off, and today we are going to do the Ape Tape case study. Okay, I'm going to take you behind the scenes and give you a look at one of our custom private label products that we had, kind of engineered and figured out, and give you the branding behind it, the packaging, the why we chose that product, the evaluation technique, all the different things that we did. And then I'm going to throw a monkey wrench at you and give you a total left-hand turn and show you how things backfired on us, okay? Because I want to show you that not everything is all rosy and, you know, pretty, all right? So we're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff today, specifically about physical products, private labeling. We'll talk about how we used them on all the different aspects like that, okay? So let me know, make sure you guys, can you see the Ape Tape case study titles slide? Can you guys see that? All right, so here we go. And if you have questions, go ahead and throw them out there. I will try to catch them as we go. And if not, I promise we'll do a Q&A at the end as well. If you have questions that are have nothing to do with what we're talking about, save them till the end, okay? Let's try to stay on topic so the training is more valuable, especially when you want to go back and look at the replay or the recording, and you can actually find what you're looking for and stay on topic and stay on track, all right? So, Ape Tape case study starting now. So the overview, what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about why we chose Ape Tape. Okay, we'll talk about what it is and what it does and all that stuff in a second, but this is the overview of what we're going to cover in this call. Why we chose Ape Tape, how we sourced Ape Tape, how we built in our competitive advantages to compete, and stand out from the competitions, why we branded it the way we did, our rollout strategy, and an extended Q&A section. Now, actually, the rollout strategy, that's where the monkey wrench comes in, because we actually had to deviate from our rollout strategy. So I'm going to show you some other stuff instead, okay? So this should be really good for you guys who are looking into, private labeling your own products, or kind of wanting to get in behind the scenes, or figure out, what does his team do when it comes to product? How do they think about products? How do they, look for products? How do they figure out places in the marketplace that they want to be? Do they look for super unique stuff? Are they worried about competition? All those different kinds of things we're going to kind of go through today, and you're going to see a product go from basically inception idea all the way through to the end. Okay, does that sound good to everybody? You guys ready to dive in with this for me? Again, the more interactive you are, the better I will be today, because I will feed and thrive off your guys' interaction. Okay, so why did we choose Ape Tape? Now, first of all, let me just qualify. Ape Tape is a kinesiology tape. It's a sports tape, and it's kind of the thing you see all the, CrossFit athletes wearing and things like that. And this was a brand that we started internally, and had the plan to launch it and do everything else with it. And then we actually wound up partnering on it with Ryan Koisan and Daniel Audenson, who are their business partners, are really good friends of mine. We actually put out a training course. Well, I put out a training course with them called Ecom Masters, which was a big FBA training program on how we were leveraging Amazon. And Ryan and Daniel and I decided to launch it together and push it out, okay? Because we were going to tackle and really take a brand to new heights using both of our, my Ecom and their Amazon, and really just do awesome with it, okay? And I'll explain to you what happened as well. But the product is still one of our favorite all-time products, and the thought process and everything that we did leading up to it was done exactly the way every product should be put together, okay? So we were not actually looking for this product, all right? It kind of fell into our lap. We weren't looking, saying, hey, let's go sell kinesiology tape. No, we were looking for a product that met specific criteria, all right? So this is something where we're very different. Most people go, oh, I want to sell yoga mats, okay? Not looking to see whether yoga mats are something they should sell. We set a series of criteria that it has to meet, and then we go find a product or a series of products that meet that criteria, and to figure out what we're going to sell based on the products that meet that criteria. So we found kinesiology tape based on these criteria. Okay, we did not go to AliExpress or Alibaba or Amazon and type in, let's do kinesiology tape. No, we didn't do that. So we were looking for a product that was niche specific, that had a very large audience base. Okay, we wanted something that was not it was mass appeal, but it was not something like generic that had a niche, so we could actually target a very specific niche on our Facebook ads, in our marketing, in our content marketing, things like that. Passion based niches where people are actually you know tied into whatever the products are. Okay, but it needed to be a large audience base. So the example I always use here is, niche specific would be something like underwater basket weaving, right? So you're a scuba diver who likes to weave baskets underwater. It's a very niche specific or niche, but it has a very tiny audience base. Okay, and that's a problem. There's a lot of really cool niche specific products and very very tightly focused niches, but their audience base is too narrow. All right, so we wanted to find something that was niche specific but also had a large audience base. Then we needed to make sure that audience was easily reachable. Okay, this is another thing people don't consider. There are lots of audiences out there that are huge that would be very profitable, but they're very hard to access. Okay, they're very hard to, like, Facebook ads. Maybe they're in a category that you can't get to. So the example here would be if you were trying to sell a weight loss product on, and you were leveraging Facebook as your main traffic source or something like that, you can't reach your audience. Or if you were selling some kind of tactical machete or something, you can't reach your audience on Facebook or any of the or AdWords or any of the easy to use ad platforms, because they don't allow you to advertise those kinds of products. So the audience may be big, but you can't access it. All right. So we needed to make sure we were easily able to reach the entire audience. And ideally, it should be a passionate audience. Okay. Now, passion niches are, and I don't mean like the sexual aspect of passion. I'm talking about the people believe in it, they wear it, they love it, they're you know impassioned about their market. Okay, fitness niches are like this, pet niches are like this, hobby niches are like this, things like that. So those are the things that we are actually looking for, because a impassioned audience is a much more hyperactive type buyer. Okay, so the more passionate they are, the more they care, the more they want to belong, the more you can leverage those types of emotions in your marketing to increase the sales. Okay. Now, if you notice, our initial requirements have nothing to do with product. Okay. It's all about the audience. Now, if you want to be honest with yourself, how many of you guys go out there looking for products based on the audience? How many of you guys go out there and look at products based on products? Right? Yeah, that's almost everybody. Then it also needed to be lightweight and small. Okay. Why? Because we have to ship it. Okay. Whether Amazon FBA was shipping it, there's a cost there, or whether it was shipping out of our fulfillment warehouse, which is 35 feet to my right, or if it was going to a third party fulfillment or whatever else, there's got to be a shipping cost, right? And someone has to pay that, whether it's the customer or it's you. Okay. And if it's the customer, well, the number one cause of cart abandonment or product page abandonment is expensive shipping costs. Okay, so the lighter and smaller it is, the more cost effective and cheaper it is to ship. That's important, right? It needed to not be complicated, okay, in a number of ways. Number one, it needed to not be complicated to the user. So if we didn't want to have to do an education campaign to teach the world why they needed our product, okay? We wanted them to see our product and go, yep, I get it. That makes sense. I want it. Okay. It also needed to not be complicated in the technical or assembly type sense, because the more complicated something is, the higher the likelihood of it breaking. Okay. And in the complicated aspect of breakage, every product has a defect rate, okay, which is the percentage of the units you buy from your manufacturer that are going to be inoperable, broken, unusable, return is defective, things like that. So the lower the defect rate, the higher your profits are, because defect rates have to be absorbed by you, the seller. Okay, so the more moving parts, the more issues that potentially to go wrong, the higher your defect rate is likely to be. Okay, which is why you know electronics and things like that are some of the products we tell most people to stay away from because there is so many uh, issues with that. Now, like one of the things I've custom designed, not even just private label, but custom designed, was a flashlight from the ground up. I mean, we went from CAD file all the way to full blown production, and one of the biggest things that we've had to deal with and this is a legit manufacturer, is our defect rates. Okay, when you're selling a $179 flashlight and your cost on that flashlight is around 50 bucks or 40 bucks depending on options, and your defect rate is 10, 12, 14%, you're losing a ton of money. It's killing your profits. Okay, so it took us, I don't know how many tens and tens of thousands of dollars to work with the manufacturer to improve our QC, improve the product quality, and get it down to drive uh, our defect rate down to where it was acceptable. Now it's in about a 4.5% range. Okay, so things like that are things to consider. Now, if you're private labeling, you still have to worry about product quality. Now, if you're this is also true if you're doing AliExpress or anything else. Product quality is always something you're going to have to concern yourself with. So the less complicated it is, the easier it is for it to have a larger quality. Okay, and the cheaper it's going to be to produce that quality. Next is it can be private labeled. We don't sell Sony, right? We don't sell the same brand as everybody else. If everybody is selling a KitchenAid blender, well, I'm not going to sell a KitchenAid blender. I'm going to sell the Tanner-tastic blender, right? At least it's my brand. Maybe the exact same product, but I'm going to brand it myself so that as long as it's mine, if it's my brand, then I control the pricing. I'm not directly competing with KitchenAid because KitchenAid, everybody else is competing for price, but mine is a Tanner-tastic blender, which may be a similar blender, but only people who are also selling the Tanner-tastic blender can directly compete with me on the exact same quality. So there's always ways to position it differently, okay? And if you want to build a brand, which you should, if you're selling somebody else's product, it's very hard to build a brand doing that unless you are a major retailer, okay? And the market must already want the product. I don't want to have to create demand. If the market doesn't want the product, I don't want to sell it. Okay? Does that make sense? If just because you think it's cool doesn't mean your market thinks it's cool. And just because your market thinks it's cool doesn't mean they would want to buy it. How many times have you ever been out window shopping or at a fair or a farmer's market or anything, and you walk by a product and go, "Man, this is really cool. I'd never buy it, but it's really cool." You've probably said those exact same words to yourself a few hundred times at least in your lifetime, right? Well, that's the same thing with your market. You got to make sure they actually want what you're going to be selling. And it must have multiple competitors doing over seven figures. This was a big requirement. People are like, wait, what? You want competition? Yes, because I don't want to go out there and reinvent the wheel. I want to go where somebody else has already gone and proven that there's money to be made in this market and lots of money to be made in this market. Okay? Competition is not bad. Competition is good. It's proof that there is ability in that market to make money. All right? So these are the kinds of things that we cared about, okay? And then the other thing was it had to be sold for $20 or more because anything less than that and our profit is too low, our actual dollar profit, and it needs to have real retail potential. Okay, because one of the things that as we're growing our brands, we would love to eventually get our products, all of our products, one of our products or more into a retail location where manufacturers or not manufacturers, excuse me, retailers or wholesalers or whoever are buying our product in bulk and selling it into their stores. Okay, so this is not necessarily a qualification everybody needs to do, but in our case, we wanted it to have real retail potential. Okay, but can be sold for $20 or more. That's very important. You don't want to sell products any cheaper than that because it's very hard to turn a profit when you have to buy your traffic and your product all on something that's less than 20 bucks. And especially when your cost per acquisitions are usually in the $7 to $12 range on Facebook or more, right? Are these requirements making sense, guys? Can you kind of see how we think about products differently? Fernanda says yes. It's very counterintuitive, not necessarily counterintuitive, but so opposite of what everybody else does, okay? Because we're trying to build a business. We're not trying to just make a dollar flipping a product, okay? And if you're going to put out the effort to find a product, it takes the same effort to find a good product that you can build a brand on, or a product that you can just make a couple bucks on. Okay. So put out the extra effort and the time to do this. Okay. So how did we find kinesiology tape? Okay, that's what ape tape is. It is a kinesiology sports tape. All right, how did we find it? So we did independent research. We looked around. We used Google. We used Bing. We went to libraries, believe it or not. We went online. We went on Amazon. We went all over the place. We used different software. We looked into the market. I did not just go to the Amazon bestseller list and say, "Ooh, what's selling?" I also did not just go to AliExpress and go, "Ooh, what's cheap?" Okay? I also, and for sure, did not go into a Facebook group and start combing through people's screenshots to see what they're selling and then go sell the same crap. Okay? We are trying to find a product that we can sell as a part of a business. We looked at Amazon. We're going to go through some of this stuff. So we looked at Amazon to see what kind of products met our categories, met our requirements. Now, again, if you go back to our requirements up here, none of these are actually, aside from complicated, lightweight, and small, and can be sold for over $20, has really anything to do with the product. Everything else is market based, right? Because we got to find the market first. And then once we find markets that meet our needs, then we can go see what kind of products within those markets are going to have interest to us, right? We looked at Amazon. We gravitated to the sports and outdoors category. Was that necessarily because we have to, or because you should, or Robert or Norman or Samuel or Trevor or Joe or whoever should jump over and go, "Oh man, Tanner did sports and outdoors. That means I'm going to." No, I happen to be very big into fitness. I was a athlete. Ryan Khoisan's a rock climber, same kind of thing. Daniel loves sports too. So we just both kind of, all three of us just kind of went, let's, as we were doing our independent research individually, we all kind of wound up still looking at the sports and outdoors category because it's where we had more interest. Okay, but we did look across the categories and do a whole bunch of different categories. But ultimately, we kept coming back to the sports and outdoors category based on personal interest. All right. So this is how it actually came about. Okay. we the CrossFit games were happening. Okay. And I apologize if you guys are CrossFitters, but I love to make fun of CrossFitters. Okay, I always have. And we were all sitting around joking around about the CrossFit games and making fun of things, teasing them. These basically, and specifically, we were making fun of the tape. Some of these guys were and women were completely taped up, right, with kinesiology tape. At the time, we weren't considering it as a product, but we were joking around, goofing around, talking about that, and then while we were doing that, I think it was Daniel who um, went over and looked on Amazon and saw that there's like 5 or 6 kinesiology tapes in Amazon bestsellers, and kinesiology because we were like looking up what is that tape they're wearing. So we were joking about it, and so we were basically making fun of the CrossFit games, and then we saw on Amazon on bestseller list that the same product that all these CrossFitters were wearing with all these different brands was like, this is interesting. Maybe we should dig deeper. Okay. So you never know where inspiration is going to strike. This was the thing. Now, it just so happened that it worked out that this was, hey, here's an idea. Let's take it deeper and let's see what makes sense. Okay. So the next thing we jumped into was merchant words. Merchant words is a keyword research tool that you will pull data from Amazon because Amazon's keyword research is all buyer keywords. Google is search keywords with some buyer traffic. Amazon is all buyer traffic. All right. So we wanted to see what merchant words was talking about regarding kinesiology tape, all the different variations of the tape to see what the search volume was on these different products. This gave us kind of an idea of it within the Amazon marketplace. How big is this audience? All right. So we did Amazon category searches to see how did these products rank in the categories, what other products were in the categories, and kind of what was just out there, and what were the price points, and what was the different stuff. Then we wound up doing more Google searching, where we wound up on Inc. magazine's fastest growing company search, okay? Because we're trying to figure out, hey, what's the potential? Where's the market cap? What's the idea? How big can we take this product? Okay? So we went to the Amazon category search And you could see we typed in kinesiology tape, and you could see there was at the time there was Master of Muscle tape, there was KT tape, there was Rock tape, and then there was Kinesiotex Gold. Okay, so if just and there was actually even more, but this is the top four results. Now, looking at this, because obviously we also did a lot of Amazon, and then you over here on the right, you'd see there were sponsored listings, so people were buying ads for them. There was EX9, there was a knockoff, bulk brand. There was a bulk brand below it, and then there was Masters of Muscles up at the very top result. Okay, now Masters of Muscle is a FBA brand. Okay, it's a marketer who started his own kinesiology tape brand. Okay, that's all it is. KT Tape is a brand endorsed by I can't remember her name, but she's a tennis player. Rock Tape was kind of the big kinesiology tape brand in the market, and then there was Kinesiotex Gold, which is basically what you would find in like a Walgreens or a CVS type brand, but it still sells very well on Amazon. And the prices you could see were kind of all over the spectrum. Okay, so we're getting some data here. We're collecting data. We went to Merchant Words and we looked up the different results. Okay, so you could see we looked up the KT tape brand, we looked up Rock tape brand, and we looked up kinesiology tape as well as some other ones. But these are the big three that we looked at. We took the two biggest and most notable brands in the market and we researched what kind of result they're getting search wise. And then we went over to the kinesiology tape to see what kind of the tape itself in the generic sense was getting search wise. All right. So you could see there's a fair amount of search volume. And what was very surprising to us was Rock Tape is by far the most publicized and the biggest brand out there in terms of kinesio tape. But on Amazon, KT tape was getting basically almost four times, actually, it is four times um, the search volume on just the name brand search. KT tape was getting a lot more. We assumed KT tape was a much smaller known brand. Okay. But because it was tied to influencer marketing and a better job than Rock Tape, we realized, wow, Rock Tape has the marketing dollars and the corporate type positioning, but KT Tape actually was getting out there more. So we realized that, hey, that we can do this. Okay, and then we could also tap into influencer marketing and things like that and getting people to do this. All right, is this helping, guys? Is this making sense? How many of you guys are learning something? I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, awesome. Learning a ton. Amazing. So cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think it's cool to take you guys, behind the scenes on some of this stuff because it gives you an idea into the thought process. It's one thing to teach you, hey, do this, do this, do this, and it's another thing to actually see us do it, right? Okay, so let's keep going. So Merchant Words was telling us, hey, there is volume here. And remember, this is just on Amazon. And this doesn't count any of the other 75 some odd variation keywords that we looked up. Okay. And Amazon, people are like, Amazon or whatever. It's still only, it's huge, but it's only 1% of global e commerce sales. All right. So if the search numbers are big here, and we start here with our research or we continue our research here, we realize there's a whole nother ocean out there of traffic potential and other people. Because if there's 196,000 people searching for KT tape on Amazon, I guarantee you there's a way more than that searching for it on Google too. Okay, because Google is the rest of the world, right? So then it was turned into like I said, the CrossFit Games and the Amazon bestseller list. So you can see here, this is the CrossFit Games. You got over here you got the guy with the Rogue doing the power clean, and his entire back is taped up. Then you got a sprinter here who is got her leg, her arm, shoulder taped up, and then now you've even got swimmers using it to pull their shoulders back. Okay, so basically this kinesiology tape was going all over the place, and you can see the swimmers wearing KT tape, and everybody else is wearing the other two people are wearing Rock tape. Okay, again the two big brands. So this was Google image search looking at CrossFit Games, and if in the CrossFit Games it was hard to find an athlete who didn't at least have some piece of kinesiology tape on them. Okay, even if they're wrapping it around their finger as like to protect a rip or something like that. And then the Amazon bestseller rankings were showing us, you know, that we had number 7, number 114 in sports and outdoors. So these two brands were 114 in sports and outdoors and 137 in sports and outdoors in the overall bestseller ranking, meaning they were up there. Okay. Anything in the sub few hundred range on Amazon in these major top level categories is huge in terms of sales volume. Okay, and they're also ranking well in sub-level categories that are further down, and we're seeing what kind of categories people are ranking in. And if you look, they're very closely related. In the sports outdoors, sports fitness, and accessories category, one was 48 and one was 54. Okay, so they're very close in their categories. Okay, and then they were also one was thrown in the athletic tape category that for ranking, one was in braces, splints, and supports. So we could see some variations of how people are categorizing these or how brands are categorizing these, so we could look at what different potential was out there. So then our other research led us into, hey, what kind of growth rate, how big, what's possible out there, and how fast can we grow this, and what's the market demand for these products, which led us over to ink. So it turns out that in 2014, ink, and this is when we were looking at this in 2015, rock tape was on the ink 5000. Okay, and if you look at their 3-year growth, so 1,068% growth. 2013 revenue 5.3 million, 2010 revenue 454,000. Okay, pretty crazy, right? So massive growth potential, and it's just a little low ticket product, right? So we were like, man, okay, there's some potential here. There's what that shows is there's a lot. Now, Rock Tape has the growth, but it also had the lowest of the two top level brand searches on Amazon. So we said, oh, that's just this one company. KT Tape had 1,200% 3-year growth, 9.1 million revenue off of 683,000 3 years prior. So if we go back 1,000%, 1,200%, okay? And again, both of these brands were ranked 448 and 354. Okay, so they're close to each other. And it's two different brands with two different marketing angles, two different strategies, two different everything. Okay, so we realized, hey, the market interest is growing at a rapid rate, right? There's high demand. Companies are doing very well. They're scaling, and there's lots of money being spent and made in this market. Okay, so then we're okay. That's cool. Let's go look into this. Let's get Ape Tape. Let's start finding it. It wasn't called Ape Tape at the time. It was just Kinesiology Tape. That was the brand we created. Okay. So we went to Alibaba.com because we did not know any kind of tape or medical tape manufacturers that we could work with. So we had to just go see what was out there. So now, and even back then we have a little bit of a leg up on some of people starting out because we already have established relationships with other vendors and manufacturers and a network that we can tap to, hey, we're trying to find this product, things like that. But in this case, we had no one that could help us. So we had to do it the original way, like everybody else does. We went to Alibaba, okay, and we searched kinesiology tape, which was the generic name properly spelled for the tape we were looking for. We found the top 3 companies that were also the longest gold members. Okay, on Alibaba there's tons of people out there that sell all kinds of stuff, and on Alibaba there's an ability for the company to pay Alibaba to become a gold member, meaning they've been verified as being a legitimate company, not necessarily a trustworthy company, but at least being legitimate and willing to spend money with Alibaba. Okay, so in there were so many criteria, we had to limit it down. So what we did was we looked for people who were gold members for multiple years, and we went with the ones who had been paying Alibaba the longest. Okay, because those, they may not necessarily be the most legitimate because we haven't found that part out yet. But if someone has been paying Alibaba a few $1,000s a year for 7 or 10 years, versus someone who's not a gold member, there's a little bit more street cred there for at least searching out our stuff. Okay. So then what we did was we found these companies and we set up Skype calls with each of them. Now, notice what I said. Calls. I didn't say we sent them emails. We sent them emails to set up the calls, but we didn't communicate via email. We got on a voice chat via Skype. Okay? Because you need to talk to people. All right? This is how you build a business and relationships. And if you want to be treated well and get a good relationship going with the manufacturer, you got to pick up the phone. Okay? So we asked about the company. What was their company history? What's their mission? What do they do? What's their specialty? What kind of products do they specialize in? What's their quality control process and what kind of certifications do they have? Are they a CE company? Are they ISO 9000? What kind of FDA type compliance do they have for their medical tapes and things like that? We talked about their manufacturing capacity. Hey, how much of this stuff do you produce in a year? How much can you produce? Are you at capacity? How much more capacity can you handle before you reach your max capacity? What happens when you reach your max capacity? Those kind of things, okay? Then we talked about product customization. Hey, you've got all these products. We're looking at this kinesiology tape. What kind of options do we have? What can we do to the product? Can we change the color? Can we print on it? Can we change the core? Can we change the length, the size, all that stuff, right? And then we asked about packaging options. What are our options? What kind of different packaging do you have that we can just adapt? Or do you not have any packaging? Or can we do custom packaging? And what are your relationships with packaging vendors and all that stuff? Okay, we asked a ton of questions for all of these different companies. This took multiple calls with each company. Okay, then we wound up ordering samples from 2 of the 3 companies. Why not all 3? Because one of the companies, just our gut feeling on them was just, it made us feel not good. So we're like, you know what? If our gut is already telling us that before we even spend any money with them or place an order, just cut them out. Let's not even worry about it. Let's focus on the 2 that seemed interesting and seemed like they had potential. Okay. And then we compared them against the competitor's product. So we ordered samples. We ordered, I think, about a total of about a dozen rolls of each size tape from each manufacturer. Not one roll of each, because we wanted to see a quality control across the different, you know, number of products. It's easy to cherry pick one product to send as a sample. It's not that easy to send you a bunch of the same product and have them all be good quality. And we also got different colors and different lengths and all kinds of different things to see the variations and the different glues they used and all kinds of stuff. All right. And then we compared them against each other. We used the product. We tried it. We gave it to our friends. We saw what people liked about it, what they didn't like, what the problems were, because we were trying to develop and figure out what product's going to make the best sense for us. Okay, the next thing was, this is the example of how we found them. So on Alibaba, there were a ridiculous 14,000 products found when we searched kinesiology tape. So we had to limit it. So if you look right here, you can see you can actually um, do the gold supplier checkbox here, which would eliminate anyone who doesn't have this gold supplier star. And you can see here's a 1-year gold supplier, here's a 7-year gold supplier, here's a 2-year. Again, that doesn't mean they're a totally legit and they're not going to be a great, an awesome company to work for or work with. It doesn't tell you that at all. It just means they're slightly more verified by Alibaba than another company. Okay, but it's good to know. And then we looked through all these listings to figure out where we found our competitors or the top competition. We had to have some competitive advantages. We were not going to go out there and just sell a Me Too product like everybody else does. Silicone baking mitts, right? Everybody started selling silicone baking mitts. It was a Me Too product. Oh, I'm selling that too. You know, Trevor's selling it. The Norman sees it, and Norman starts selling it, and then I see it, and I start selling it. We're all selling the exact same product, and the only thing we can do is compete on price. Okay, so you can't be a Me Too product. I will not sell a Me Too product, okay, because it's not worth my time. So it has to stand out from the rest of the other products in the marketplace. The Rock Tape, the KT Tape, the Kinesiotech Gold, the Masters of Muscle, all these different tapes that were out there. Mummy Tape, all these different ones. Okay. So we basically worked into 4 competitive advantages that we worked out with our manufacturer to get started. Okay. The first thing was we made ours longer. Okay. So almost actually, unless you ordered a bulk roll, every KT tape roll on the market was 14.4 feet long. Rock tape, KT tape, Kinesiotech, all those. That was the industry standard size. So we said, hey, what if we make more tape on a roll? We increased the roll size. So what we did was we added 10 feet to a roll. So instead of, or everybody else, their standard roll is 14, our standard roll is 24. So the instant competitive advantage is we're 10 feet longer, okay? And it was only a marginal price increase. I think it worked out to less than 30 cents in per unit cost at a few thousand units to add that extra 10 feet. Maybe it was 38 cents or something like it was ridiculously cheap, okay? We also offered multiple width options, 2-inch and 4-inch, okay? Because depending on the taping application of what you're doing, we found looking at reviews and feedback, one of the biggest complaints about like KT tape and rock tape at the time was that they didn't have wider links. Well, rock tape did, but it was very, very expensive. KT tape did not. So if you're taping a shoulder or something like that, having a 4-inch roll of tape is better because then you can use one piece of the 4-inch, split it down the middle, and you can get more performance out of it in a tighter fit. Okay? So we had multiple width options. The other thing was all the other brands were charging additional if you wanted to have waterproof tape. So if you wanted to have waterproof or sweat-proof tape, because water and sweat are basically the same thing, right? You had to pay extra for it. Okay, so we made all our tape waterproof. We used the waterproof and anti-sweat adhesive on everything. Okay, so not only was our tape longer and available in 2 and 4-inch options, but it was all waterproof without making them pay an additional option fee. And we also used premium branding with our product to make it stand out as a higher quality, higher, you know, price point product. So right off the bat, we stand out visually with our packaging, visually with the size of our roll, technically with the waterproof and the longer length and the multiple width option, and functionality with the width options and the waterproofing. Okay. How many of you guys take that much time to put that much thought into creating a competitive advantage for your products? Not many of you, right? And not because you wouldn't do it, maybe just because you never thought of it, right? Okay. And that's, yeah, Fernando says that's quite a process. Of course it is. But we're trying to, business is a process, right? So if you're going to go to all the effort of trying to build a business, doesn't your product deserve to have the same effort paid to it to get a good product to market? So we've engineered 4 competitive advantages into our product, okay, to make us stand out from the competition. We're still selling kinesiology tape just like everybody else, but we don't look or operate like anybody else now. Okay, simply by being smart about it, we actually were able to engineer competitive advantages into our product without any major revamping or R&D or anything like that. Pretty cool, right? So the why behind our branding. Our brand requirements were, number one, it needed to be a premium design, okay? Because we want to sell at a premium price point. We never want to be the cheap product on the market. We want to be an expensive product, okay? We wanted to be on the higher end. It needed to be a strong design that was also gender neutral, okay? We needed both men and women to buy it, okay? It had to have a catchy name that the market that we're going after would identify with. It also needed a strong logo that will tie in with the brand name and will appeal visually to the market. You guys starting to see why we wound up with Ape Tape? It needed retail quality packaging because one of our goals is to eventually get into retail. So if we start with retail quality packaging, we don't have to reinvent or do anything else if a retail opportunity came along. It also is a big standout feature from most of our competition because very few people who are selling brands out there, or not brands, products, especially in the Shopify or ClickFunnels or AliExpress or any of those kind of spaces, take any time to actually care about their packaging or make their product look like quality. And the other thing is it needs a cohesive design that makes the entire product and packaging and just the offer pop. Okay, these were our requirements before we even went into brand name, packaging design, or anything. These were the requirements that we knew our packaging had to hit. So we were able to evaluate what we were doing based on criteria. Instead of just saying, oh, that's a cool logo, let's go with that. We had to take the logos that we had and apply them to all of these different requirements to make sure they met the requirements. Because there were some amazing logos that we had that were, not so gender neutral. They were really cool, online, but they didn't look so good on the packaging. Different things like that, okay? So here you go. This is Ape Tape. Now, this was the packaging. So we wound up with a roll of Ape Tape with an ape wearing our tape in a shoulder pattern, right? Ape Tape. Why did we go Ape Tape? Well, because our major market we knew was going to be CrossFitters and functional fitness people, okay, and hardcore athlete type people, okay? They're all about primal, right? So, you know, the muscular ape totally fits in, right? So we built him. We had him using our tape. We put him inside of a roll of tape. Okay? It all ties together. Okay? Our packaging prevents industries delay fatigue and eliminate pain. Okay? Very clear-cut things that ape tape or that kinesiology tape has been medically documented to do. Okay? We showed the tape in action on the back of the packaging. You see how the design is very clean and everything else. One thing I want you to note is kinesiology tape is spelled wrong on the top tab on the front of the package. Right here, kinesiology. This actually made it through our quality control, and our first run of tape is spelled wrong. Okay? It did not affect initial sales at all. Okay? We obviously fixed it on future things, but I'm showing you that not everything we do is perfect. Okay? But we do work hard on making things good. We started building our own little catchwords. You know, ape strong. We want you to be ape strong external support right where you need it. Okay. So it's a 2-inch wide, 24.4 feet long, and we highlight the fact that we're 10 feet longer, 10 extra feet. Okay. So the side of our packaging showed the other bullet points. There was a clear-cut window in the top so you could see the color of the tape. The other colors of the tape were on the side of the packaging. We even branded the tape. Okay? Why? Because it didn't cost us anything extra to do it, other than having the designer take the Ape Tape logo, slant it, space it out, and make it cool to print. The other thing that we did that our competition has not done was we made it easy to measure and cut your tape. Okay, most tape had a clear backing or a solid paper backing. We put a graph paper grid line on the back of it, so if you needed a certain amount of tape, you could cut your every piece to the exact length that you wanted. Okay, rather than having to guess, or if you needed to get it exactly in half or a third or 1 bar wide, you could easily do that using our grid on the back of the paper. Okay, that's another little bit of competitive advantage that shows up great on photography that our competition wasn't doing. All right. We had our different size rolls, so you can see the 4-inch tape and the 2-inch tape, and we also offered it in multiple colors. Now we started when we launched. Granted, we were able to do variations because we had extra money to be able to afford to do variations and buy the additional colors of tape and whatnot. Now, here's the thing though. If you don't have it, then don't do it. And don't just pick colors randomly. We did a whole ton of research to figure out what 3 colors should we go with. Well, black was a default because it's neutral, okay? And we started looking, we're like, oh, we should go for pink for women to attract women. Actually, pink is not one of the better selling brands or colors in ape tape or in kinesiology tape. It turns out that the orange and the blue were both very, very hot selling colors on both Amazon, on Google, on Rock Tape, on KT Tape. They were really good selling colors. So if we're going to test with multiple colors, we want to put our best foot forward and find out what's going to sell the best and what's going to give us the best likelihood of turning over our inventory so we can go buy more and expand our color line. We didn't start with 12 colors. We mapped out the colors we were going to roll out, but we did not start our initial launch with that. We started with this. Black and 4-inch tape only came in black to cut down the variations. The only colors you could choose from were in 2-inch tape. Okay? And we took amazing product photography shots. We had a local photographer do very, professional photography with some with mirrors, some without, all on professional white backgrounds. We also did shots of people wearing it. And we had to make sure that it was the right kind of people. You don't want somebody with a beer belly, wearing ape tape, right? Because that wasn't the right market. Okay. You wanted somebody who was jacked, right? Who was shredded, who was ape strong. So we had guys and women who were, very fit athletes wearing the tape and did photo shoots with them. Okay. Did we pay them? Nope. We gave them free ape tape. Gave them each a case of ape tape for a few photos. They were ecstatic. So the trademark. Because we were building a real brand, we expected to grow it, and we grew it. We're going to grow it into what we hoped was going to be a large company. So we applied for a legitimate trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office for our logo and brand. Okay. Now, this is an additional process that most people don't take, but you see how much effort we put into building this product out and the brand. Of course, we're going to go ahead and trademark it. That makes no sense not to, especially with something as cool as ape tape, right? Now, trademarks must be classified by specific use and are organized into categories based on that use. Okay? So, ape tape falls into the sports tape for injuries category, and the trademark only applies to protection for that category. And actually, we actually got moved into the medical tape category for use in sports tape injuries. So, the category, the '05 category that we're in, was medical tape. Okay? And the trademark only protects our use in that category and directly related or competing products. Okay. So there's a reason I'm telling you this. Okay. Because people think that, oh, I've got a trademark. Nobody can come after me. Nobody can compete with me. Nobody can do that. No. The truth is, a trademark is only good if you enforce it legally. Okay, so if someone does try to use your trademark, the trademark gives you grounds to go after them. But if you don't go after them and then somebody else does it and you choose to go after that person, the lawyer is going to be like, hey, well, you didn't go after the first person, so you can't single out the second person. You have to set precedent that if you're either going to enforce it every time or you're not going to enforce it. Okay, so there's a lot to consider when you go into the legal realms of trademarks and things like that. Now, we're getting into a whole other discussion. I'm not a lawyer. I can't actually give you advice on this, but these are some of the things that we learned. Okay, but we got the trademark and we were like, man, okay, the U.S. Office, Patent and Trademark Office, awarded it. It was uncontested and things were good. So we got the trademark, but that doesn't mean that everything's going to be great. Even if they issue you a trademark and you do everything by the book, you can still have issues, which we did. We were awarded the trademark for ape tape in the medical tape '05 category, and the trademark went through uncontested and it was approved by the USPTO, okay, US Patent and Trademark Office. Several months later, I was served with legal papers from an IP attorney threatening legal action, claiming that we violated another company's trademark. There's a company out there called Can Do National Tape, and they had a trademark for ape tape as well in the paper carton and electrical tape categories. Had nothing to do with our medical tape category, okay? So the trademark office had approved both of our trademarks. So we were both issued legitimate trademarks because the USPTOs felt there was no conflicting issue. But that does not provide any guarantee of use or legal protection. The other company, Can Do National Tape, decided that they wanted to file suit if we did not stop using the trademark. They never actually filed the lawsuit. We just went through a whole bunch of threatening letters back and forth and stuff like that. So when we got into this deal, because we're like, hang on, they can't come after us. We have a trademark. And they're like, you don't have a trademark. You're ripping us off. And we're like, no, here's our trademark. So we had to send it to their IP attorney, had our IP attorney go back and forth with it. And as this is happening, we're like, holy cow, we did everything right. What is going on? We're freaking out, super pissed off, upset, and not sure, like feeling completely betrayed by the government, right? So our IP attorney explained that we're both right and that according to the USPTO, there was no conflict of interest on these two different categories. But this is America and you can sue anybody for anything. So Can Do National Tape felt that there was a reason that people would confuse our medical ape tape for their electrical tape that they sell in Home Depot, which we don't sell in Home Depot, right? So they felt there was a problem. So the attorney explained that we're both right because both companies had trademarks. Can Do National Tape had their trademark in the carton and electrical tape category. We had ours and they had theirs longer than us, and then we had ours in the um, medical tape category. So there was technically we were both right. Neither one of us had done anything wrong. But that in proving that, the only people that were going to win were going to be the lawyers because we would go back and forth. It would, our lawyers were charging us $300 an hour. Their lawyers were charging them who knows how much. And it was going back and forth. And we have a trademark, they have a trademark, they don't want us to use it, they want to, they're going to sue, we're going to sue, whatever. It's going to go back and forth. And ultimately, we decided that this was, since it was a new brand, and although we had already ordered product, we'd already done test sales, we'd already made several thousand, actually, well, tens of thousands of dollars of investment in the product, it was still cheaper and better for us to just say, hey, okay, we're done, than to go through a protracted legal battle that our attorney estimated would probably wind up in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. And since we didn't already have an established business where we had, hey, this product's making us 100 grand a month and it's worth fighting for, we didn't have all that yet because we'd only done, low volume of sales to get the product initially marketed and get it going, and we're gearing up for the main push for the product. We actually lost it. We had to give up our right to use the Ape Tape brand in exchange for them not pressing charges, or not charges, excuse me, not filing a lawsuit and not pursuing us in any legal manner. We didn't have to pay them anything. We just had to stop selling the product. Okay? So right now in my warehouse, I have 5 or 6 thousand rolls of Ape Tape that I can't sell. Okay? I can use it, I just can't sell it. Now, this was an amazingly painful lesson for us. Okay? And it was embarrassing because we were actually talking about Ape Tape in public. We were teaching on it. And then we had this happen. But so the point here is, guys, you can do everything right and shit can still go wrong. Now, I believe in transparency on this kind of stuff. I make a ton of money in e-commerce, right? And people are always like, "Oh man, Tanner, you're like got the Midas touch in e-com." Yeah, but shit still goes wrong. Now, a lot of people, this would be the end of their business. They would, "Oh man, my life is over. I can't do this anymore." I just said, "Screw it. Let's move on. Let's find something else. I did it once. I can do it again." Right? And luckily, we didn't have a whole bunch of money. I mean, we had about probably, I'd say probably 25 or $30,000 tied up in it total. So some of that had come back to us. But now, the attorneys on the other company were not very good IP attorneys, it turns out later down the road, we found out, because they never actually made a demand for us to turn over our trademark legally to them. So they legally don't own it. But we also signed a document that said we wouldn't use it. So we're not going to be shady about it. But if they're going to enforce it, they should have taken legal ownership of it and transferred our trademark into their name. They never did that. And now they'd have to go through a whole hassle to get it done. They also, we owned apetape.com. Like this company we owned it. We already, they were in business longer than us and they didn't even own the domain. So we owned it. They didn't ask us to turn that over or offer to buy it from us or anything. They didn't even say anything about it. And so we didn't have to mention it. So what we were able to do was we wound up selling the apetape.com domain later and got some of our money back. And guess who bought it? The company that made us shut down our trademark. So we actually were able to cover all of our legal expenses by selling them the domain months later because they didn't do what they should have done when the agreement was signed. And it was all above board and legal. So we actually got a little bit of our own back. We got a little bit, not as much, but hey, it happens. So what we can do, we could still sell Ape Tape. We just have to take it, change its brand, change its packaging, change everything, and sell it as a different product. Okay. And that is actually on the docket right now. We're going to do that. We just haven't had time to do that with all the other things that we're doing. Um, but it's still a great product. It just needs to be done differently. Now, I will tell you this. I started teaching on Ape Tape in one of our Amazon courses, and we used to have a slide in there that said, "Hey, important disclaimer, we're teaching on this, whatever, don't copy us, don't cheat, blah, 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 blah." And I shit you not, within about a week, maybe 2 weeks of the time I taught this to our $1,000 course buyers, there was already 10 new products on Amazon selling the exact same thing. So if you're thinking, "Oh man, Tanner did all this market research for me to go out and sell Ape Tape," if you really want to, or Kinesia Tape, go for it. Okay, but the reality is it's not the untapped market that you think it is, because there's been so many copycats who've already jumped on board. because I was willing to share what we were doing. All right. So I'm not in the market right now. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But I just like believe in being totally transparent because I know I see people's gears turning on this call, like, oh my God, I'm gonna go sell this. So that is the story of Ape Tape, a behind the scenes look at an amazing product with a crazy, you know, left hand, right hook, whatever you want to call it, left hand turn that you weren't expecting, right? You were expecting me to show you screenshots of bazillions of dollars and the island that I bought, but nope. Some things don't work that well, but that doesn't in any way take away from the process that we went through in developing and finding and teaching the product. The entire process, not counting the legal aspect of it, we went from research to product in about 2 months, maybe a little bit less than that. Startup cost was minimal. Okay, we registered a domain. We paid for the we did the research. We all did the research ourselves, so that was just time. Then we paid our designer, who was actually full time for our company, so it was a negligible cost. But if it would probably cost you 500 to maybe $1,500 in terms of having that kind of packaging designed if you went to an outside agency. But probably you could get it conservatively done for 500 or 600 bucks. You could get it done for probably $499 on 99 Designs because that's one of their base package costs. And then we had our initial sample orders. We probably spent another, let's say, $500 or $800 on samples. And then our initial stocking order for our very first order was 3,500 bucks. So all in 5 or 6 grand for the first initial thing, and then ultimately total we had about 30K tied up into it by the very end of everything. You're welcome, Fernanda. Any other questions, guys? She said useful info. Thank you. So happy to answer your questions on some of this stuff and kind of help you out with this, but hopefully my goal here was not to scare you away from launching products because hey, this is, it's a fluke. Things happen like this, but the reality is this doesn't happen most of the time. Okay? And the process, it is the best process for finding win. It's the same product process that we use to find all of our other winning products. And almost without fail, guys, whenever we have shortcutted this process, we wind up with a product that's not as good as we had hoped. And we were like, oh, we can skip this part because we're better, or we know this, or whatever, or it's not as important. And without fail, every time we skip part of the process, it bites us in the butt in terms of a less quality product. Fernando, what is the minimum number one can use? I'm not sure what you're asking, Fernanda. Samuel, yes, the recording of this will be in the members area in the jam session archives. Trevor, that's lawyer talk. That's outside. I could probably get away with selling it in another country, um, but that's something we have not pursued because again, we didn't have the infrastructure in place. There's more to me to building a business than just throwing a product internationally on Amazon, which we could do and we can do if the legal thing is there. But I just don't need legal hassles in my life. It's so much easier to just go out and make more money doing something with another product than it is to, stress out about, variations or how can I get around this loophole? How can I, you know, zig and zag instead of just, going around. Samuel, it's the replay for last month's session is right smack dab when you log in and you scroll down to jam sessions. It shows last month's replay right there on the homepage. Minimum order amount Fernanda, depends completely on the product and the manufacturer. The lower cost the product and the more volume based the manufacturer's profit is, the higher the MOQ, the higher the minimum order quantity is going to be. Okay, so if they only make a nickel on every product, that's why they don't want to sell you 10 products. Okay, that's why they want you to buy 1,000, because if it's not 1,000 or more units, yeah, it's more expensive for you, but they have to make money too. Okay, this is something that people don't seem to think about when it comes to working with manufacturers. You can't be all out for yourself. If you go out and you try to screw your manufacturer by forcing them to give you a lower MOQ or reduce the pricing ridiculously or whatever else just so that you'll buy their product, you're not establishing a good relationship with them. It has to be win-win across the board. Because you know what? Especially if you're going to China, if a Chinese company is telling you it's going to cost you $10 per unit, and you go, no way, Fernanda, you're like, no way, I'm not going to pay $10. I will only pay you $7.50 per unit. And they're like, nah, okay. Well, what did they do? You know what? The Chinese can figure out a way to make that product $3 cheaper and still maintain their profit. You know who's going to suffer though? You and your customer. Okay, because there is a way to make it cheaper. Now, an example, there's a joke about having a motorcycle built in China. It's not really a funny joke, but it is an enlightening joke. And the joke is that um, we have three different product lines of the motorcycle. You can pick A, B, or C. And well, what's the difference? They all look exactly the same. Well, product A is guaranteed to start once. Product B will start for a month. Product C will probably run for life. Okay, and they look identical. You couldn't tell them apart, but the internals are different. So in this case, it'd be like the wiring. The wiring it'll start once, but the electrical impulse will burn up the wiring, and you basically have a brick after that. The other one, it'll work for a little while, but certain parts are softer metal or pot metal or whatever else, and they're going to start failing. And the third version is exactly what it is, the high quality version that you would get anywhere, and it'll last for as long as it's supposed to last. And that's the Chinese mentality. I told another story about, I can't remember which training it was on, but there was another manufacturer, a toy manufacturer, who was beating up their manufacturer. They said, "Hey, we need these horses, these toy horses, um, and we don't like the. We want you to do this different mane and this different tail on the toy horses so that they're nicer to brush, and it's got to be this higher quality, whatever, of fake hair." And the manufacturer said, well, okay, we can do that, but we can't do it for the price that you want, because this material for the hair is more expensive, and we have to buy so much of it, blah, 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 blah. We have to charge you more per unit. And the guy was flipping out on him and whatever else, and said he would take his business elsewhere. And it was a big order. So the Chinese said, okay, let me figure out what we can do. And this is all true. And they came back and said, okay, we've got it. We can do it. And the guy said, good. Make me whatever 10,000 units or however big the order was. I can't remember exactly what the number was. So the guy got the horses, and horses went out, started being sold, and they started having all these complaints. And these pictures started surfacing on the internet. The horse was falling open because it was glued in half together. And when they opened the horse, where the butt of the horse is, there was a doll's head with hair attached sticking out the horse's butt to make the tail of the horse. Okay, so what did the Chinese do? They found another defective product or whatever else that had the same kind of hair that they needed for the horse's tail. They chopped the doll's head off, enlarged the butt of the horse to fit the doll's head, and put the horse together so that the doll's hair sticking out the horse's butt was the tail of the horse. So the Chinese are ingenious. They'll figure out how to get it done the way you want, but it's not going to be what you want if you try to beat them up on price. Okay, so you got to make it fair to everybody. Negotiate, yes. Abuse, no. Because it's not just you that matters. Fernanda says hilarious. It's true. I got to find the picture. They're floating around the internet, but it is funny. And you've all seen the other stuff where it's like the AliExpress stuff where someone orders the dress, right? The really pretty dress, and they get like a canvas tent or something ridiculous instead of what they actually ordered. Um, that happens. That can happen too in working with regular manufacturers, especially if you're not, you know, taking care of your business right and you're not treating them correctly. Because what I mean, they're in China, they're across the world from you. Typically, there's a lot less recourse in terms of how you're gonna, get them to own up to a mistake or something if you don't establish good relationships. All right, looks like questions are tapering off, guys. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to go ahead and get this replay recording or rendering, get it uploaded. It'll be in the members area, probably no later than tomorrow, but hopefully today. We'll see how long it takes to render, and you guys will be able to check it out following that. So thank you very much, all of you who are here hanging out. Really appreciated it. Had a great time with you all, and hope you're loving these jam sessions.